Alexa, stop. Hey, Gary.
Hey Don, how you doing?
Okay. How you been?
Good. So who's that band you got behind you there?
It's called Andy and Renee, and their backup band is Hard Rain. They are a local South Bay band. They put on a Dylan Fest annually for about the last 35 years. It's a 8 hour concert of nothing but Bob Dylan songs, no repeats, and about 50 musicians with them. I've gone about probably for the last 10 or 12 years.
Ah,
And then when they're not doing that's just an annual thing. Then they just play in the local, bars and things. But they're good. Um, I've
so
also
do they, I mean, if it's that long, are these other bands like repeating basically a lot of the same tunes? Because
no
no,
repeats, no.
how
They
many hours is it?
8 hours went from eight
8 hours of Dylan. I
noon to
mean,
eight.
Dylan wrote that enough music for all that, huh?
Oh yeah, yeah, he did. I mean, all we typically know of him is the protest era.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's got a lot of. In fact, I learned. I didn't learn them, but I mean, I became acquainted with many songs through that I had no idea were his. Uh, and no, it's a real good thing. Get about, I'd say, between 500 to 700 people there at the local Torrance Cultural Center.
Ah,
But yeah, it's they're quite popular, in a small crowd, or a select group of people. They're about, and I like it because especially these Dylan fests. Um, there's a wide range of audience there, but most are, 50s, 60s. They're around 60,
yeah.
61, the two of them. In
So
fact,
you so you probably run into a lot of the same people, I would assume.
yes, they're always new ones, but yeah, I know a lot of them. The last 2, 3 years, I've bought what's called a VIP pass.
Yeah.
And then what they do afterward, you get a little, what is that kind of bag you get when you go to the Oscars? They have all the prizes in them. And
Yeah.
then they also give an appreciation party for all the VIP members sometime later in the year at one of the homes. So, but yeah, they are not on. Who did we get? Who did I admit this time? We'll find out. Uh, they've made 37 CDs. They've been together since the early 80s.
Wow.
And they aren't married. They're just played together. And Andy of Andy and Renee, they he writes a lot of songs. Um,
So they are most of the are those guys locals? I mean, they grown up in that area?
yeah, I think no. He Andy is from Canada,
Okay.
and then she maybe originally or was from Texas. I'm not sure, but they met. They both, I think, went to Colorado State, and
Yeah.
that's where they met. And they
Hmm.
pretty much made their living doing what they're doing the whole time. I don't. Uh,
Why is everything so big?
why is everything so big?
Because there's
Probably
not.
you have it set up. Um,
Can
uh,
you hear me?
yeah, I can hear
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, we
Okay.
hear you, Harry.
Why is everything so big? It was a
Well,
small.
I think the way my screen is set up is whoever is talking is big, and the rest of us are thumbnails at the top.
What's a thumbnail?
That's a small
View.
picture.
It
Small
says
bit.
view up there. Can I make
Oh
it?
my God, who's here?
Look at what's growing.
I don't recognize
He's
this
got
guy.
a problem. He's got some growth. Something's crawling all over his
I have
chin.
I have all sorts of growth. If you look closely, you'll see they cut some cancer off.
Ah,
Oh.
is that why you grew the beard?
No, no, I call it my anxiety beard.
Are you anxious?
Yes.
Well, I've been dying for 2 years, so don't worry about it.
Hey, we all been dying since we've been about 25, Harry.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
yeah.
you don't have cancer.
None that I know of. They've cut
Yeah.
it all out, like Steve says.
So what's happening, Steve, with that? With those they slice pieces off you?
Yeah, they do it every couple of years.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Hold on, my phone is ringing.
Yeah, I haven't had any melanomas yet. They've just been carcinomas.
Yeah,
So
my
either
wife
freeze
has
them
to
off
go.
or cut them off.
My wife
I
has to
get
go
my-
in and,
I got mine just nitrogen until they turn into cancerous, and they cut them out on my arms and stuff. Couple. I've been about 3 or 4 times. It's
Oh, I'm back.
It's all of us who spent too much time in the sun when we were kids.
yeah.
Well,
I had a friend who would have to wear a hat
Oh, yeah.
because he had
well, I
a
have to wear a hat too, Harry. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, you got all that nice hair.
yeah. Don't worry about that. My cancer's in my bladder, but he had I don't know, it was in his head, skin on top here, and they would cut pieces off every couple of years or so.
yeah.
He made sure he wore a hat all the time.
Yeah, that's what I've had to do. I mean, that's where it's, and as I understand it, all that is from going to the beach when we were young.
Wow.
That's where
It was all that beach football.
Yeah. Hi, Royal.
So I got it figured out.
Hi, Royal.
Steve's trying to match Royal. Royal's got the beard.
I
Royal,
have
you
always
had that a
envied
while.
Royal.
Oops, that's not what I wanted to do.
And I might be trapped with it because Millie says she likes it.
Uh-oh.
Really?
So even if my anxiety goes away, the beard may not.
By
I
the
kind
way,
of like the goatee better.
Gary, you were wondering why everything is so big. I am assuming it up in the upper right-hand corner of your screen in small letters. Probably the first thing you see is a green shield, and then there's some words. Do you see one that says view? Upper right-hand corner?
It's up on my top left.
Oh, all right. Well,
What do I do? Click it?
click on view, and then if you on mine, when I click on view, I have speaker, gallery, blah blah blah. But I started off with speaker. That's where everything was really big, this talker. I'm now in gallery, and what I see on my screen are just the thumbnails of each of us who are participating.
Okay, so it says exit full screen.
Yeah, you can do that. That won't hurt anything. Just don't do anything like leaving or anything.
What would happen when I hit exit full screen?
Nothing happened. Well, don't
Okay.
do too much. We may lose you.
Okay, this might be better for me. Yeah.
Where's your chair back?
You can still see me, right?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. All I see is your thumbnail, and that's large enough for me.
Keep saying thumbnails. I don't know what.
A thumbnail is just a small picture.
Okay, can you all see me?
Yes.
Yes.
And you're way too big, Harry.
Yeah.
Oh, I wish.
You're the star of the show.
Hallelujah.
Oh. Let's see. We're waiting for
Maybe the birthday boy, Raleigh.
Raleigh.
And hopefully Norman. Anyone know about Norman?
I haven't heard anything from him. He usually responds and stuff. So no
Hope
one's
he's
talking.
okay.
Huh?
Hope he's okay.
Yeah. Well, someone I should email.
And Joe might check in. I called Joe day before yesterday to remind him about this, and he was home, so there's a chance he can join us.
Oh, meaning home from the rehab.
Home from the rehab.
Yeah. Okay. Good. That's a good news. Yeah, I assume all of you got my email regarding Alan.
Yeah, very sad.
Yeah, I had not realized that he was an original member of the poker group. I think,
Yeah.
Gary, you pointed that out to me. Steve, when I was up, probably with Judy, one of the football games, we went to see Alan, did we not?
It's entirely possible.
Uh,
I know I saw him with Gerald when
I,
Gerald was up
we,
here one time, and
yeah,
I might have taken you out there. One of the wineries I took you to, Don, was only a few miles from Alan's house.
yeah, I think I physically saw him, and the only thing I remember, we didn't go in, visit and all that kind of stuff. But he was outside, or we saw him outside, and he had something like llamas or something.
Well, there were llamas in that area. I don't think he had them. He had a fairly modest place.
Okay, maybe you just pointed out that area to me. I probably don't have any pictures of it,
Yeah.
but I think I saw him, physically saw him. I think, but that's a long time ago.
Yeah, I think
Well,
I've told some of you. It's kind of sad. Alan and I were doubles partners at one point on the tennis team.
mm,
Of course, like Don and who else?
Raleigh was on the tennis team.
Yeah, no. I was going to say, well, goes back to him. Don and Joe, at least, go back to elementary school with Alan.
that's right.
I didn't know him until I was a sophomore.
Mm.
Remember the infamous football game, Steve, where you threw a pass and my cousin caught it in the fire pit?
Yeah, it's one of the best passes I ever threw.
Well, I think that's the last time I saw Alan because he was in the game too.
Was he? Okay, I didn't remember him.
And I remember whacking him across the mouth with my wrist. I was blocking him and I almost knocked his teeth out and I almost broke my wrist.
Whoever
A lot of damage done in that
pass
game.
must have gotten hurt in a fire pit, as I remember. They were cement.
Well,
Well,
we broke Gerald's leg.
yeah, Gerald ended up with a fractured bone in his leg.
Do they still have those fire pits? They used to have them at Playa del Rey.
Yeah.
Or do
I'm
they,
not sure if they call it Playa del Rey anymore. I mean, they have them. What's that beach just north of it?
north of?
Playa del Rey. But there are pits there, whatever that beach is. And then they have a few at Huntington Beach, if I remember right.
Yeah, I've been to the ones in Huntington Beach and Playa del Rey. That's the only place I ever knew they were ever at. So
Maybe it's just what they call it, a different beach now. Yeah. I called it Playa del Rey too, Gary.
that's
Yeah,
the only thing I remember.
There's a backstory on that football game where I threw the pass that led Harry's cousin into the fire pit. It may have been on that play or another play, but anyway, Gerald was trying to cover someone, could have been Harry's cousin, and he ran into the fire pit, so he broke his leg. Well, it turns out that he and Molly had just started dating at El Camino at the time of that game, and she was there to watch the football game. So she ended up taking him, since I guess they had come in the same car, to the hospital to get his leg fixed. And that kind of cemented their relationship, which led to them getting married. So if I don't throw that pass, I don't throw it into the fire pit. If Gerald doesn't break his leg, maybe he doesn't marry Molly.
They have children, Steve?
They had a couple. They had a son and a daughter. The son's name is Ian. He lives up here in Portland. I never see him. And they had what's the daughter's name? Gosh. It'll come to me about 4 hours from now. I think she lives out in Idaho.
Mm.
And then Gerald, of course, had two sons with his second wife, Barbara, one of the sons lives up here and one lives in California.
Mm.
Oh, getting back to Alan, some of you remember, he had the coolest car. He had a 1957 red Chevy Coupe
Mm.
with slicks on the back.
Mm.
And so some of you guys were behind us in another car. It was me and him. We're driving up Yukon, and he just takes off really fast. And finally, you have to stop at Yukon because remember, there was a stop sign there somewhere along the line. I think now there's a signal. And I said, something smells here. He said, oh, that's rubber. And then somebody later says, wow, he was burning rubber. You can hear it throughout the neighborhood. So I couldn't hear anything. So I kept thinking, well, he must have broken the sound barrier.
Is the
I didn't
57
remember
Chevy the one? Is the 57 Chevy the one that had the wings?
Yeah,
Yes.
Back?
yeah, yeah.
57's a classic.
Yeah,
It's probably a Bel Air.
Bel Air
Yeah.
coupe
yeah.
without, not the, hard top coupe without the posts.
Right. That was real popular then.
It still is.
Yeah. I mean, and also the concept of the hardtop coupe in any model of car that did not have that center post. I could not believe it when all these popular cars of kids or whatever are four doors. Nobody would have had a four-door back then, unless you had to because that was your parents' car.
I had forgotten the 57 Chevy. When I talked to Joe the other day, he reminded me about it. I remembered Alan being a great driver. I think he would always drive his mom's 59 blue Chevy station wagon. And I think he had a Brody knob on the steering wheel. So I never saw anyone drive one-handed like Alan could. And I just thought that was amazing at the time. I thought Royal was a good driver, but Alan really blew me away.
Royal was a good driver, but he used to scare the crap out of me because he used to go fast.
In a Corvair.
In his Corvair. You took me, we went one night, we were just out cruising around, and Royal, do you remember going over to the Rose Bowl in Pasadena?
Oh, yes, I do.
Yeah.
My hearing's a little muffled today. I'm sorry.
Okay. I was gonna say you were like cruising around it was in the residential area, and you were just cruising like crazy, and I thought, man, it's amazing. Here I am almost 80 years old, and I remember stupid things like that. I can't remember what I had to eat yesterday, but I can remember stupid stuff like that.
It's not.
Well,
The other part about Royal, you never had a dirty front window on your car. Never.
Well, I worked at the station and I had to
I
clean
know.
it before I left.
That was the good old days when you came out and pumped the gas and cleaned the windows and check the oil, right? You
And
don't
check
do
your
that.
tires if you asked.
Yeah.
You put water in the radiator. Yeah, it was Royal had, if I recall correctly, a blue Corvair.
Yep.
I had a gray Corvair, and Gerald Miwa had a white Corvair. So
That
we
sounds right.
top of the line here, right?
Everybody liked Ralph Nader's favorite car.
That's
Yeah,
all we
right.
could afford. I mean, my dad.
You're lucky y'all didn't get burned up in a wreck.
Yeah, it had the I think it had the gas. I don't know if it was the Corvair or the Pinto that had the gas tank underneath the driver's seat. I don't know. One of those
It
cars.
was in the front of the car.
Yeah.
Because the engine was in the rear, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so the gas tank was in the front by the driver.
So if you got in an accident, it would leak.
It'd be like a dynamite explosion with you in it.
All these cars you guys describe as owning, cool cars. Was this in high school or after you were out of high school?
Out of high school, for me.
Royal had the Corvair after high school. He had a green.
No, did you have it after? I thought you had one in high school.
He had a green Ford in high school.
No, you did. Okay.
54.
Yeah, junior college for me.
Well, I can tell you a good story about a Pinto. My first brand new car was a Ford Pinto.
Oh, so was mine.
Brand stick shift. I think I paid $4,000 for it. It was stripped down. I thought thinking all it had is a radio and a heater in it. And I drove that thing for 150,000 miles before it died on me. And the amazing thing, I had to drive from Claremont to downtown LA to work. And Pintos were notorious for leaking oil. You'd lose a quart of oil about once a month. And I never changed the oil in that Pinto because I figured if it was losing a quart a month and I was putting a quart in, I was getting changed every 3 or 4 months. So I never. That's it back in the good old days when I wasn't making any money. But
Well, Gary, that was the road to riches for me. I bought a brand new little red Pinto. I financed it through the credit union, and I don't know how long I had it. I had it at least until my oldest daughter was 16, or 250,000 miles. And at that time, the payments were taken out of my paycheck by the credit union who financed it. And after the 3-year period, they still kept taking the money out, and it would go into my savings account. And since I kept it so long, I was able to accumulate so much money to make investments with that money. It was as if I didn't have the money because it was constantly taken out there. And then I gave it to my daughter as a high school graduation present, and she just drove it crazy and messed it up in about a year and a half. So, but I ended up saving a lot of money, and whenever I needed to buy a car because I had kept it so long, the money accumulated that I was able to buy a car cash since then. I never financed another car since then. So it worked out just fine for me.
Well, another fun fact
exactly
about
the same thing, Harry.
I'll give you another fun fact about a Pinto. This will be my last fun fact. I used to drive it from Claremont into downtown LA every day. I forgot to put the oil in it a couple of times, and literally the oil was seeping out of the head one day, and
Oh my God.
there was smoke coming out. So I pulled off the side of the 10 freeway. I put a couple of quarts of oil in it, got back on the road, and just kept on going. Of course, that's back in the stupid days, when I was. But I thought for sure I'd blown the head on it or whatever, because you could actually see stuff seeping out of the head, but I don't know, it sealed itself or something or other because it just kept on going. Anyway.
Well, going back to 57 Chevys, I have an improper joke to tell about 57 Chevys. Back when my daughter was going to high school in Los Alamos, there was a nearby town, Espanola. And most of the support functions at the laboratory were done by Hispanics. People would live in Espanola because it was cheaper down there than it was up on the hill. But Los Alamos High School would play Espanola High School in athletics. And there was a lot of snobbery on the part of all of the kids up on the hill. They were lily white, coming from highly educated families. And all they knew about Hispanics was the Hispanics kind of worked for their parents. So they felt superior. So there was a lot of animosity. When the schools would get together, there would be fights, lots of racial epithets and so on. Anyway, getting back to the 57 Chevy, the ongoing joke at Los Alamos was, what's the difference between a 57 Chevy and the Espanola homecoming queen? Any ideas?
No.
Not everyone's been in a 57 Chevy.
I'm sorry. I like those kind of jokes.
That's like the joke of what's the most important man at a Mexican wedding? It's the guy with the jumper cables.
Oh, Jesus.
I didn't get that one.
Well, I'll tell you another fun fact as long as we're on this stuff. When I lived in Michigan, and this tells you how naive the folks are in the Midwest. There was this new coffee shop chain that was from Wisconsin that opened up over in Michigan, and the name of the coffee chain was Beaners. So finally, about 3 or 4 months in, somebody finally clued the company in what Beaners had a bad connotation, and they had to change the signs on all these. And I mean, he was a chain both in Wisconsin and Michigan. And my last fun thing was to buy a coffee mug that said Beaners on it to take home. So,
How long ago was that, Gary?
huh?
How long ago was that?
That wasn't 15 years ago. That wasn't even, So, but it was amazing. Like I say, the folks in the Midwest, they didn't get it.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that, and
Oh, did I mention it? No, that's another one.
mentioned that
you guys got to tell me if I mentioned stuff like that before.
Don't worry about that. It's cool. I mentioned that the Michigan people at a football game kept asking what a taco was.
What a taco was.
Oh,
Miraculously, I remember both of those stories being told, and I don't remember that much.
Well, as long as we're on the food thing, years and years ago, this is back in the 60s when I was in high school, my aunt and uncle, all my relatives came from Illinois. Okay, I was born in Bloomington, Illinois. Oh, this aunt and uncle and my 2 cousins came out to visit us probably in the early 60s in California for vacation. So they come out, and my mother, she made tacos. Okay, but in the 60s, I mean, you had to scrounge for Mexican food, but she knew how to make tacos, and they were very simple. It's just a corn tortilla, ground beef, lettuce, tomato, and some cheese on it. And they didn't even have salsa in those days. The way you used to spice them up is you put some Tabasco sauce on it. So she decided to make these for my aunt and uncle. And they thought this was the greatest thing in the world. They never heard about Mexican food in Illinois in those days. It's just like, this was like some gourmet thing from California, tacos, and like I say, they were real basic tacos. In fact, I owned the record in my neighborhood. At 10 years old, I ate 12 tacos at one sitting. So
taco story.
Me and my next door neighbor, my buddy next door, we had this taco eating contest one day. So,
well, out of curiosity, what's the best Mexican food anybody ever had? Think about that for a minute. You don't have to answer right now, but I'm curious.
Well, I think Don has taken us to El Cholo, and when my daughter went to UC Irvine, my youngest daughter, there was an El Cholo in Irvine, and that had really good food.
Mm-hmm. So that's good. Was it the best?
I think today El Cholo, the original one, is in LA off Western, but they have one in Whittier today and La Habra, or one or the other, or maybe both. I've been to others, and they're kind of the same.
I'm gonna have to get out of here for a second.
But yeah, I was gonna say El Cholo, but I thought I'd give anybody else a chance. But going back to a taco story, when I was a kid, there was a malt shop around the corner on Lamoli. And it was called Miss Grizel's, and her daughter was named Chicky. But at any rate, they had hamburgers and malts, but they also had tacos. So my big thing, I did it repeatedly. It was routine with me. I'd wash a car and I'd get probably a couple bucks. And what I would do is go to Miss Grizel's and buy 6 of her tacos and probably have 20 cents left over if you didn't charge tax. Oh, you did charge tax if you took it out. So I'd always take it out. So I'd eat 6 of her tacos after I washed the car. And I would always say, okay, I want some hot sauce on it. And she would. It was, maybe it was Tabasco sauce. I have no idea. We still called it hot sauce. But they were really good tacos. Well, one time, and I was doing this when I was pretty young. One time in the Cub Scouts, I apparently before the Cub Scout meeting that was at my house because my mom was the den mother, I went and ordered my 6 tacos and said, put lots of hot sauce on it. And she did. And that really burned my lips. And I had to wear zinc oxide the rest of the day to my Cub Scout meeting. They were really good tacos. I mean, and they had the ingredients that you just said, Gary, just lettuce, tomato, and cheese, and ground beef.
Yep.
And that was it.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd like to defer my answer to best Mexican, but Gary, you talking about eating 12 tacos. Early in our marriage, Millie and I, we were stationed in Shreveport, Louisiana. And we couldn't afford to do much, as you might appreciate. At that point, we were still working on airman third-class pay.
Yeah, you were sweating a lot, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. But we would go to this Mexican restaurant. And you might remember at that time, I was skinny in high school. When we got married, I was even skinnier, I think. I had about a 28-inch waist when I would buy pants. And, well, anyway, and I think I was weighing about 120 to 125 pounds. So Joe and I would have been very competitive. But we would go to this Mexican restaurant in Shreveport, Louisiana with very little money. But we would go, and when they would take our order, we would order 3 meals, 1 for Millie and 2 for me. And I would eat 2 meals. And they would have a jar of jalapenos, pickled jalapenos, sitting on the table. And I would eat like half of that jar. So God knows what happened to that capability, because I couldn't do that anymore.
Oh, geez.
But every time we would order that second meal for me, the waitress would always look at us and say, "Is someone joining you?" And Millie would go, no, he's going to do it. But I was awfully good. Not my best, but it was good.
One of my friends at work, when I had a big lunch, my wife used to pack my lunch for me at times. And I was just probably as thin as you. He said, "Harry, you're feeding the tapeworm."
So, Steve, where is your favorite?
Yeah, it's got to be
I brought the subject up. If I had to choose one meal, Mexican food, to eat before I died, it would probably be carne asada at Rancho de Chamaya in New Mexico. So it's New Mexican food, not Mexican.
There, not at the restaurant, but at least
yeah,
where you were in New Mexico.
Just straight up Mexican food, you know. I used to love that chain in Southern California. Don, you took a couple times we met up there. What was it? El Paso Cantina. I used to like their stuff.
They were good, yeah. My favorite meal at El Cholo was green corn tamales. They only serve them from May to October. But you can buy them all year to take home frozen. So, but they're good.
We have a number of
just like Mexican food. I just really do, you know.
Yeah, I've been disappointed here in Portland with the Mexican food. We have a place that we go to, and it's okay. It's a pale shadow of New Mexican, and it's not as good as I remember El Paso being. But what we do have here in Portland are a number of places that do tamales. And you're right. It's hard to beat a really good tamale. And my favorite is the green chili and pork tamales. They're
Well,
really
Steve, if you like carne guisada, you should go to a Cuban place, if there are any up there. Cuban or Puerto Rican places, they serve carne guisada.
I haven't seen any Cubans. Didn't you used to go to a Peruvian cuisine place?
Yeah, there was a place, I think in Brentwood, and there was another place in Van Nuys. And I recall we were going to go there and it was closed. Remember we met there with, I think Gerald and Joe, and they had a sign on there that said, due to family, this and that. We were closed. So we ended up going to a Chinese
buffet.
Yeah.
I remember the Chinese buffet, and then, yeah, now that you're bringing it back, I remember you being disappointed at the other place being closed.
Yeah.
Anyway, is Peruvian something I should look into? We had a place that just opened.
Yeah, sure. I don't usually, I don't eat that much anymore because of my situation, but Peruvians make really good chicken. They give you French fries with everything. So, they're
They
the
don't call
ones.
them Peruvian fries?
Yeah, because they invented the potato. They're the ones who grew potatoes first, the Inca. So I recommend any type of chicken dish in a Peruvian restaurant.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, strangely, the place went into a dead Taco Bell.
Yeah.
So Royal, what's your favorite Mexican food?
Well,
Or don't you?
Susan Coda's mother, probably. And then second, it would be a groceria in Oakland, which I don't think is there anymore. And they had the best carnitas.
Yeah. Well, I'm a chili relleno guy. I love chili rellenos. I don't know why I've gotten off. I basically, if I eat Mexican food anymore, it's a chili relleno, a couple of those, and some refried beans. I don't even care for the rice anymore that much. But anyway, that's you talk about tamales. I think tamales are the toughest thing to make because I don't know how many times I get tamales and it's all the masa. There's no meat in it. I feel that a good tamale has to have some kind of meat in it, something other than and it's tough getting meat in tamales.
Did you guys ever eat it was a brand name, XLNT?
Excellente?
4 letters, XLNT.
Yeah, it's Excellente chili.
They used to have them in the cafeteria at Lusinger. You could get those tamales.
You can, yeah, but they got these blocks of chili. It's called Excellente chili, and they still make it.
Right. I buy it every now and then.
Yeah, in fact, you can only buy it on Amazon. That's the only place we can find it anymore. But when I was growing up, again, my next door neighbor, he used to make, that was the base for his chili. He was one of the fathers next door, and he used to make the chili. Always started out with that block of Excellente chili, and then he'd add his other stuff to it. So it was, but we were kind of amazed, Linda and I, that they still actually made that stuff, but they do, but it's not easy to find.
I just go to an Albertsons supermarket and it's there. And sometimes I'll have the excellent tamales.
Yeah.
I wait until they have the excellent mini tamales. And you buy them in a thing of 6 or something like that. Yeah. I never, I make my own chili in a crock pot. I don't know what I put in. Every time it's different. But I never thought until you just mentioned that to put in a block of excellent chili for the base.
Right.
I'm always afraid it's going to eat my insides because it's really strong stuff.
Well, but if you use that as the base and then you add, more meat or whatever, it kind of tones it down, so it's not quite as strong. So
right.
Well, what I remember about the tamales that I would get at Lusinger in the cafeteria, and they were Excellente, I'm pretty sure, was every time I would get one, there would be a mystery meat thing in the tamale, like a vein. It was really gross, but I kept going back and getting more of them.
There's a chain of markets in the Los Angeles area, Vallarta markets. Probably Don has seen some of them.
What's the name?
Vallarta, Vallarta.
Hmm. Never registered with me if it did.
Okay, well, check it up online because they're all over LA and they've expanded now up to Bakersfield. I don't know how far north they've gotten, but they have like a deli section and they have tamales. They have kind of what were you talking about? Whatever. They have everything.
Hmm.
And for takeout, and if the market is big enough, they have little booths, little chairs where you can sit with a table. And there's one here in Newhall. And after my Saturday vigil mass I go to, I stop there and I have tamale de puerco, or what did someone else mention? The chili relleno.
Relleno.
Chili
Yeah,
relleno.
Harry did.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a buffet style thing. You could order takeout or not. But if you ever run into a Vallarta market, they should have a takeout of Mexican food, and it is excellent and it's very reasonably priced.
Well, when Gary mentioned the chili rellenos, the last time Millie and I went to New Mexico, we have a standard list of restaurants that we go to, and it's like, playing the old hits. And this last time we tried a couple of new places, and we went into the Sandia Casino, and they have a fairly upscale restaurant in there called the Council Room. It's Indian owned, of course. And the council refers to the Indian Council, and it's a great place to eat. The prices are very reasonable, but I bring it up because I had one of their Mexican combos, and it had chili relleno in it. It was the absolute best chili relleno I've ever eaten. And I consider myself something of an aficionado about those, like yourself. But if you're ever in Albuquerque, I wouldn't miss that. It's just to die for.
Well, I don't know if any of you guys ever to go to Las Vegas, but in my work life, I went there probably twice a year for years. And I used to stay at this place called Sam's Town, which is way out off the strip.
I know it.
Because it was nice and quiet in the room. They're really nice rooms and they were cheap. But anyway, there's a Mexican restaurant downstairs at Sam's Town. It's really good Mexican restaurant. I used to go there every time, and they had the good chili rellenos. So, so I used to go there for years.
Yeah, back when my sister and brother-in-law were alive, we would meet them in Vegas all the time.
Yeah,
and we were fans of Sam's Club. We would go to the steakhouse down there in Sam's Club. And one day, my brother-in-law ordered a porterhouse, and for his side, he chose a sweet potato. And the porterhouse came out, and it was about a 2-pound porterhouse.
Wow!
And they brought the sweet potato on a separate plate because the sweet potato filled the plate. Wow. It was the biggest thing I've ever seen that someone would try to eat.
26-ounce or 2-pound steak.
Yeah.
Well, when I was going there, you could get rooms for it seems like $29.99 a night. But the cool thing about it is the hotel rooms were surrounded by this garden area that was in the center, and they would do a light show every night. You could look out your hotel window, and they do this big light show and stuff down. And they had like a garden area. You could go in there and have coffee in the morning. It was a cool place. And like I say, it was very reasonable. And you got away from all that strip stuff and all the, high price.
If you were there on business, that'd be a perfect place to stay.
Oh yeah, it was great because I got away from all that. So, but anyway, so.
Okay, I got a question. Now that we've beat that subject to death, as I guess Royal and Steve, you guys were government employees at some point, right?
Only when I was in the Air Force.
Oh, but
only when I was in King County.
What I wanted to mention was this Social Security penalty that penalized you for retiring on a government pension. Did you guys fall under
School
that
teachers.
umbrella?
But aren't they? But aren't they getting Harry? Aren't they getting rid of that or something? They're getting rid of the penalty.
Yeah, I got double screwed with that initially, and just a few days ago I looked into my checking account that I received my direct deposit from Social Security and got a huge check. And what happened was when I worked for the county, the first 13, 15 years or so, I put money into Social Security. That was part of it. You didn't have any option. So I had enough units to qualify for a certain amount of Social Security benefits on retirement.
Reduced amount.
Yeah, when my wife started working LA Unified School District, throughout her whole career, she paid Social Security. So of course she was eligible for the benefits upon retirement. So when I went to get my Social Security pension benefits, I thought I was entitled to this amount. And then they had a penalty because I had a county pension where I only got probably a third of what I should have gotten or half of what I should have gotten, even though I put the money in. Okay, that's how I got screwed, number one. Number two is traditionally, when two couples are receiving Social Security benefits and one passes, the one that has the lower amount, let's say if the surviving spouse has a lower amount of benefits per month and the surviving spouse has a higher amount, the surviving spouse, let's see if I got that right. The surviving spouse would get the higher amount.
Right.
Okay, let's see. Did I make that clear?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say I got a lower amount, Elaine got a higher amount, she died.
You should get the higher amount.
You should get the higher amount.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I go there and they said, oh, you got a government pension. No, we got to subtract 2/3 of your government pension from the amount you would have gotten from her. And so I still got the lower amount. So I got screwed twice. So like I mentioned, a couple of days ago, I looked at my bank account because of this new law that was signed to eliminate that pension and make some of those payments retroactive to January 1st of 2024. I got a huge amount of money. And okay, great, I got that money. And then they say in April, if you fall under this and that, you may be getting a higher amount.
Right.
So finally, after all these years where I got shafted, where I put all this money in and they didn't give it back, I'm pretty happy about that. Did any of you guys fall under that situation?
No, but I heard about it because I have a nephew who worked for the post office for years and years, and he was under that situation because he retired from the post office and he worked in the private sector for a number of years. So he had Social Security, he was eligible, but he got a reduced amount, just like you.
Right.
But then and he's the one who brought it up. He said they changed the law where they're going, they're no longer could penalize you on your Social Security because you have a government pension. So he was just telling me, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago that, that he started getting more. Now, he didn't mention the fact that they did it retroactive, but they do all kinds of that retroactive stuff, really. Because when I retired way back when, I got full retirement. But for some reason or other, they decided that I don't know, I worked an extra year or something or other. So all of a sudden they popped this big giant check when I filed for Social Security, and they told me it was retroactive money. And I thought, okay, fine, I'll take it. But I never could figure out what exactly I got the retro. I mean, it was only a one-time deal, but anyway.
Yeah, Harry, I didn't mean to dismiss you when you asked if Royal and I had ever worked for the government. Let me explain my situation. When I worked for TRW, obviously that's a contractor, that's not a government agency. So I was just, normal. It's like a normal job, scooping ice cream or anything else. You paid Social Security. It's my understanding there was a separate and independent pension system, at least in California, maybe elsewhere, called the Public Employees Retirement System, PERS. Okay. If you were a member of PERS, at least at one point in time, you were exempt from paying Social Security. They didn't take it out of your check. Okay.
Right.
So if you retired, you got your PERS, but you didn't get a Social Security benefit because you never paid into the system. When I went to Los Alamos, it's run by, at that time, it was run by University of California. That's why I wasn't a government employee. I was a UC employee. UC had a lot of people who were on the PERS system, so they didn't end up paying Social Security. I came in and they gave me the option, and since I'd always paid Social Security, I just stayed with Social Security. So was Elaine, as a school teacher, doing PERS, or you said she paid Social Security?
Yeah, there's two separate systems for LA Unified School District. There's CalPERS and STIRS. CalPERS is for janitors and non-professional employees. STIRS is for professional employees, credentialed teachers. When Elaine started out, she started out as a teaching assistant, which was CalPERS. When she went back to college and got her teaching credential, she became a teacher and was eligible for STIRS, but she did not want to give up the benefits she had already accumulated on CalPERS, and she wrote a statement to whoever, CalPERS or STIRS, that she wished to have the deduction continued as a CalPERS future retiree. So
okay,
she was eligible for a CalPERS pension, but she was also paying Social Security throughout her entire period of employment.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I've got a son-in-law who was a police officer when he retired from the police department. He was on CalPERS, and then he worked a lot of time. He's still working because Randy's, I don't know, 57 years old, but he he gets, because he actually retired, not retired. He got a disability pension, which is paid through CalPERS because he was injured on the job as a police officer. So he actually has been getting a pension since I think he was about 40 some odd years old, because he got injured his back. But anyway, he works now selling insurance. But the interesting thing is, my daughter, she worked as a nurse, school nurse for years, and she retired on CalPERS, and she has multiple sclerosis. And believe it or not, she was going to this specialist here, multiple sclerosis thing. And she said, well, have you filed for disability? And she says, no, because I retired, and I got a pension. She says, well, you can still apply for disability. So she applied for the disability. They're paying her disability too, the federal government. So there's so many things out there. It's amazing.
Yeah, I heard that one of the employees from probation, he retired under a disability pension instead of the regular pension, and half of your pension, because it's disability, is not taxed.
Right.
So that's another caveat to this. You may, if you have a choice to retire disability wise or not disability wise, is financially better to file disability if you have a condition, because half of your income will not be taxed.
Yeah.
Part of your benefits will not be taxed.
In my case, I started teaching part-time, one class a semester, and fell under STRS. And then I guess that went on, that was when I was at Cal State Long Beach teaching. And then when I started teaching an adult school in Torrance, that was still under STRS. And anyway, at some point when I stopped teaching, I hadn't, because it was only one class a semester, I didn't have enough units or whatever you want to call them to get a pension from them. But I instead was got a modest like IRA that I just converted into my normal IRA. But yeah, it was weird. I never paid it. Frankly, Harry, I think I remember STRS. I don't know about CalSTRS, and I'm saying STRS because, well, I was at least a teacher. So
Well, Harry made a qualifying comment. To get PERS, you had to be a credentialed teacher.
yeah, I was credentialed.
Were you credentialed?
I am credentialed now.
Why didn't you get PERS then?
Well, I was about to say, I never paid.
No, it's the opposite. You got it wrong, Steve.
Oh, do I? Okay.
Yeah, it's the opposite. STRS is for
STRS
teachers.
is the higher one, if I remember right.
Okay.
And
But I
PERS,
never paid attention because
yeah.
the income I made and certainly any retirement or whatever was minuscule, because it was just that modest little thing. But I was in it for a number of years, but never paid attention to it.
When you
When
were
I
doing
was
your
in
teaching for
college-
Long Beach State, were you a University of California employee?
No,
or-
I was Long Beach State, not University of California. And yeah, no, it was always just through the state, Cal State, whatever their system was.
When I was going to school, I was working as a janitor for the Lawndale School District. And I was putting money in also for retirement. And I worked for about 2.5 years doing that. But when I quit, I took the money. But when I was going to retire from probation, I was able to buy back that money that I took out from there. So the money and the amount of time, I was half time. I think I ended up getting like an extra year. I was able to buy back, so I got like a year more benefit in my county pension because I bought back
the time.
the time that I had put in as a janitor for the Lawndale School District. I don't think, yeah, that's how it worked out.
Weird subjects today.
Yeah.
Food, focused on a particular
Food and retirement.
And retirement. Your history. You can't even remember how you retired anymore. We've been there so long.
Well, I don't know how I lucked out, but the last two companies I worked for, because they were both union shops years and years ago, they still both had pension plans, which is very unusual.
Wow, yes.
And but they had thrown out the unions years ago, but they still maintain their. In fact, I think about 6 or 7 years ago, they all got rid of the pension plans because like the Brown Shoe Company, which I don't know, you get, his famous footwear stores. You got
Buster
those
Brown
around?
thing, or
Huh?
oh, Famous Footwear.
Yeah, they're all over the place. Well, that's the company I worked for. I worked in the wholesale part of it.
Mm.
But the biggest portion of their business now is retail. It's not wholesale. So they got rid of the pension plan, but for some other reason, I lucked out that both of them still had pension plans when I worked for them. So, and the interesting thing is that at Brown or the famous footwear company, you were fully, what do they call it? Fully
Vested
at 3 years, which was amazing. I worked there 5, and the other company I worked for, we were fully vested at 5 years. So like I say, I just lucked out because you just don't find companies that have pension plans anymore.
Yeah.
So,
well, we've all got kids and grandkids. Let's talk about the kids. What are their prospects for pensions? Anybody getting a pension?
no, oh,
Any of those?
well,
Kids.
No.
grandkids
Kids or grandkids.
grandkids, none of them are getting pensions. None of them. But they're
Wow, grandkids, mine, no.
no,
My daughter,
no, they're not even. I mean,
my only kid, she and her husband aren't getting pensions. In fact, neither of them, and this is before COVID, neither of them go to work. They both work from home, at least now. Since COVID, they've worked from home, and before too. But I was just thinking the other day, I've been retired from Boeing. I started Douglas Aircraft, retired from Boeing. I've been retired for 25 years now. That's a lot more than I thought I was going to be retired. So,
yeah.
But
Well, see, that's the whole problem with Social Security. I mean, sometimes I think, and I don't want to get into politics, but I guess I am. We're all living longer. I mean, that's just the reality. So, but nobody wants to pay in anymore. So it's just like, I don't quite understand it. I mean, I don't know how you do it, but somehow or other we ought to be paying into the system.
other argument. The other argument is we should not be taxed on it. Social Security.
Well, I don't think we should. That I agree with. We shouldn't be taxed on this. To me, that's double taxation. But
and Social Security, they do not accrue any interest for that money you put away.
Right.
So it probably balances out, but I would like the interest to be accrued. And I'd rather see a Social Security than a 401(k). A 401? See.
401(k).
Yeah. In-house retirement plans. My daughter has no retirement. She pays into a investment program.
Right. Yeah, that's what all the companies have come up with is the 401(k) plan versus pensions. And the thing is, those can be good, but it depends on what the company, because the company just goes out and contracts somebody to manage that money, and depends on how good that company is investing your money in that 401(k) plan is how you're going to come out. But I mean, you can't lose on it because usually the company is contributing to it along with the employee. So, because the companies I work for, they contributed 50% up to a certain dollar amount. And then, you contributed, I don't know, 10, 12% to the whole thing. So, but anyway.
Just since we're all drawing Social Security, I think we all are. Does anybody remember how much they paid into Social Security?
no,
I do. I don't know why, but I do.
I don't remember how much, but I know before it's all over, they'll paid out more than I paid in by a whole bunch.
Yeah, I paid $192,000. I've taken out way more than that. Way more. But
that's
like
what
Royal
I'm saying.
said, as Royal said, if I'd had that invested, I would have gotten interest on the investments.
Oh yeah. If you had the interest in the investments on that 190 some odd thousand, you'd probably have millions.
Did any of you, when you read, I think you got pensions from various places. Did any of your pensions come with medical?
Not mine.
Yes.
Yours did? That's good. Yeah, Well, I was McDonnell Douglas at that time. Early 90s is when they cut out their medical. And so when I retired in 2000, there was no medical. It was just your pension. But,
Yeah, so you were retired. You retired 25 years ago. So between the time you retired and the time you started getting Medicare, you probably had a huge outlay for a medical.
the worst I was paying before I went to Kaiser, which is now, I have been for, I don't know, 10, 12 years or more. I think it was like 1,350 or 1,400 a month. And it was good medical, I guess. It was an HMO. But that was the big expense I had. Owned my home, bought the cars cash, like you guys said, new cars. So that was a big expense. Then when I went to Kaiser, went way down. And but I still, it is what it is. But it was good. That's why I worked part-time after I retired. That was the incentive, just to bridge the gap between retiring at 54 and when I could take out early Social Security at 62. Normally people don't do that. I did. So it's worked out real well for me. I haven't had any real money problems. But like you guys, I haven't relocated. I don't have summer homes, that type of thing. So
I get a statement. I guess you do also. Anyone that has Kaiser, you get a monthly statement indicating how much your doctor visits would cost and how much your Medicare pays or your plan pays. They switched my medication after I got the radiation treatment, and it's $12,000 a month for the pills that I'm getting. I'm thinking, my God, who can afford this if you don't have, any kind of coverage? $12,000 a month for a bunch of little pills.
Yep.
Yeah, I laugh when you get the statements from Medicare when on doctor statements and how much the hospital or the doctor or whatever charges. And I just had my hip replaced back in February. In fact, I'm still recovering. And I got the Medicare bill, and it's amazing. I think it was $25,000 was the bill, and Medicare got it down to paying like $5,000.
Did you pay the $5,000?
No, because I know I could go out and get all kinds of Advantage programs. For whatever reason, though, my wife and she's had all kinds of illnesses. I chose to just go out and get a supplemental Medicare thing that pays the 20%, because then we can go to any doctor we want to and whatever. So I'm probably overpaying. I could get health insurance a lot cheaper. So my supplemental policy paid the balance of it. But it blows my mind every time I see these Medicare bills or whatever, and you see this huge dollar amount that the hospital or doctors charge, and then you see about maybe 20 or 30% Medicare pays for it. And I'm just thinking, I feel sorry for the poor sucker that doesn't have any insurance, because
yeah, it's amazing. My wife's back operation cost $97,000.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, when my wife had open heart surgery, it was $120,000.
Yeah. Well, I hope it came out okay, because my wife's was really shitty. They left her not in the best of shape.
Well, she had a real struggle, but she's doing well now. But man, she was in the hospital for over a month after the surgery, and then she was in rehab place for another 2 months. And then her kidneys started failing her about 3 months after that, so she had to go back in. So it took her about 3 years to really kind of recover.
Wow.
And but she's back. She's getting around and doing
great,
doing stuff, goes to the store and whatever. So she's she's pulled through the whole thing, but it was tough times there for a while. So
Well, without a lot of data, I was going to say, I think those two cases, I don't know of anyone who's had a successful story when they start operating on the back.
no, yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, I think, but people working on the heart, those guys know what they're doing. The soft tissue
Right.
stuff, there's a high success rate for those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my sister's full of titanium or whatever they put in, and it's awful.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I
I'll tell you
remember
on hip surgery, I had my left hip replaced 4 years ago. So this time around I had my right hip. And if you need a hip replacement, do it if you can afford it, because the recovery time's pretty quick. I mean, basically you walk out of the hospital the same
Right.
day. You don't walk out, you go out with a whatchamacallit, cane or a walker.
Walker, yeah.
But you're up and around, you're moving around right after the surgery. But like I say, I'm on week 6 right now, and I'm still using a cane. In fact, I go back to the surgeon tomorrow for my 6-week thing. But do it, because I'll tell you, supposedly hip surgeries are one of the best ones. Knee surgeries are tougher recovery than hip surgeries. But
I've heard hips and knees are both pretty easy.
yeah,
Compared to back, like Steve,
backside.
somebody said, I don't know people who've had back surgery that. I do know one guy. He's 85 now. He is a doctor, Kaiser, or was, and he hurt his back, or maybe it was something generic to it, or genetic. I'm not sure, but anyway, he got to the point where he could not. He couldn't stand up straight. It was so bad, sideways as opposed to leaning forward. And he had surgery, some kind of back surgery, and he's perfectly fine. I just hope I'm feeling as good and working or walking around as good when I'm 85. In fact, probably I don't walk as good now at 80, at almost 80. Nobody's turned 80 here yet, have they?
No, that was the deal with Raleigh. If Raleigh had joined us this time, this was his month to turn 80.
He's probably partying.
Could be, or he's too morose to join us. Yeah, I think I'm the next one who turns 80. I think I'm in July. I think I'm next.
I'm not till November, mid-November.
Wow.
Well, Roe was October. I forget when Gary said he was.
September. Man, Don, you definitely were. Did you start kindergarten when you were 4?
I did.
Man, you were an early 4, huh?
I was 4 until November.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they let you go to kindergarten at that age.
I don't know if they had the same kind of, they didn't have Head Start and all this other kind of stuff, back then. And I guess I got in it. I could take a pretty good nap. So I was ready for it.
Yeah, I remember kindergarten. We had these flat boards that were they had little raised up off the ground in kindergarten, and they had like 25 or 30 of them in the kindergarten class. And you had to take your flat board and sit it on the floor and sit down on that board and take a nap every afternoon.
Yeah, we had to take a nap, but it was our towel on the linoleum floor.
And the amazing thing, I think I was even walking to school at 5. I know I was in first grade. In first grade, I walked 2 or 3 blocks to school because we were living in downtown LA on Arlington. I remember that. I remember from the time I started school, I walked to school by myself. There was no mom taking me to school.
I did too. I don't know about kindergarten, but first grade I know.
Yeah.
And of course I lived kind of like I had to cross La Mole, which was not a main street, but it was a more thoroughfare than the street I lived on, and that was the only street I had to cross. And the grade school was on the east side of Yukon, so I didn't have to cross Yukon. to go to grade school. So yeah, but it was that's you don't see any kids. Well, you hardly don't see any kids that young walking,
No,
or even by themselves in a group or whatever.
no.
And it may be that a lot of cases the schools just aren't that close, but there's just a whole new regimen.
So how many of you guys went to Roosevelt for elementary school? Any of you?
Me?
I
You went
did.
to Roosevelt? Huh?
Yeah.
How about you, Royal? Did you go to Roosevelt?
I went to Roosevelt,
Okay.
then Mark Twain.
Mark Twain?
Yep.
Okay. Because I went to Roosevelt for first grade first grade only, because second grade did you remember that across the field from Roosevelt they built Kit Carson?
Yeah.
So second grade I went to Kit Carson because they just built the school. And they actually, remember, UConn didn't even go through all the way.
No,
There was a big drain. It was a drainage ditch at the
right.
end. Okay, in
You
fact,
had
that
to
was
jog over at Compton.
huh?
I think you had to, excuse me, Lamoli at least didn't go through either. Yukon and Lamoli are also on my side of the tracks,
Right.
which was north of Rosecrans.
Right.
But neither Lamoli or Yukon went through it. Compton, you had to jog over, I forget which one. Well, you had to jog over both to get on those streets, because I would walk a lot from your part of town, I guess, about 157th or so on Yukon.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
Lamoli.
I got my first spanking when I walked to school to Roosevelt,
You got
because of that drainage ditch that Yukon was. It would fill up with water.
Huh.
And there was some older kids that built a raft. And Ron Wedworth and I were walking home from school one day. Maybe have I told you this story before? If I have, I won't.
Yeah, but I've
Walking
forgotten
home
the
from school,
detail.
and these two older kids were out on this raft, and they said, "Hey, come on, do you want to get on the raft?" And we said, "Okay, fine." So we get out on the raft, and both of us fell in the water. And I was wet all the way up to my stomach. Okay, we crawled out of the water, and I went home. And my mother, I mean, she went into holy hell over that. And, she said, and I felt sorry because she got all mad at me. She says, "Wait until your dad gets home because he's going to paddle you." So she chickened out. She wasn't going to give me the paddle. So my poor dad came home at 5 or 6 o'clock, and he was instructed to go in and give me a spanking.
Yeah. Did your mom use the famous line, tell your father what you did?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And
Yeah.
then what happened is my dad, because he didn't want anything to do with it, went into my bedroom. He shut the door, and he put me over his knee, and he says, "Now you make a lot of noise," because he just
So, Royal, you were pretty close to the ditch. Did you used to go to the ditch?
Oh, yes. Used to get crawdads. I have real problems today. Crawdads. Fishing,
Crawdads, yeah.
Oh yeah,
pick up
crawdads.
frogs.
We
We got in trouble for
Never
the
take 'em home,
crawdads
though.
too. Ronnie and I we caught the crawdads, or we call them crayfish or whatever. We caught some of those, and it was during lunch hour at school. And we got in a bunch of trouble for that. I don't remember the trouble, but for some reason or other, we decided we were going to collect them. And then we collected frogs and brought those home, and then we put them in the backyard, and there was frogs all over the place in the backyard because they multiplied like you can't believe. So
we had our own drain ditch right behind 31 Flavors. When you worked there, whoever you, Steve, at least, it was all cemented in and everything there. But
Yeah, you had the
dirt, and we had our own raft. Or I didn't have a raft. I only went on a raft once. Interesting, it was with an older guy, a year or 2 years older than me. We went, and then the people who had the raft, there were 2 girls, Maggie and Helen. We went on the raft with them, but we didn't fall in. But we had crawdads and had a raft. We also had our own gang. You guys had the Quakers, I think, over in that part of town. we had the drain ditch dogs, and they were the rough guys. But it's funny. It's too bad the kids can't do what they did back then. We did a lot of stuff that was pretty fun and relatively safe for the most part.
Well, it's just that no one, I think, knew how unsafe things were. I mean, there were a lot of chemicals being dumped into Dominguez Channel.
Oh yeah, sure.
I'm sure we were all exposed to.
Right. Right. Well, I didn't go in the drain ditch and get wet that often. I wasn't really a crawdad collector either. But yeah.
I know I was in the water a couple times. I tried a couple of rafting episodes. Yeah, I spent a lot of time down there. I used to when I first moved from El Monte to Gardena, when I was in El Monte, we had a next door neighbor who got me into the strange these days hobby of butterfly collecting. So when I came down, the best place to catch butterflies was in the ditch because it was a wild environment.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to go down there all the time.
Now, is this the slough they called it, Dominguez Slough?
No, I know what you're thinking of. No, the slough was up closer to Van Ness and Western and Artesia.
Oh, because when I first moved to that area, I lived on 147th, and 147th going east from Yukon stopped because there was this big, like a river. It was a slough, and it had a pedestrian bridge, but cars couldn't get through. So I think that's when I was a sophomore, and two interesting things happened. They decided to pave it over, cement it over like the LA River. And across the street from my house was the dumping ground for all the sediment, everything they picked up, and they built a mountain. There was actually a mountain there that was about equivalent to a 4-story building. And it was there for quite a while. And, kids in the neighborhood. And by the way, that neighborhood, Lamoli, Chadron, forgot the next street over to Yukon, 147, was about 90% Black. And we'd go up there and you could get a view of the San Gabriel Mountains with the snow on it when it was snow clad. And the only other memorable thing was, luckily, at some point, earth movers came and they took away all that and was flat. You're hearing this helicopter, and it was foggy, and a helicopter landed there. And the helicopter evidently had run out of gas. All the kids in the neighborhood went out there to see, what is this? A helicopter here? Oh, I think that whoever was there mentioned it. It's out of gas and da-da-da. And it stood there until another day. And fortunately, none of the kids vandalized it like they would. Today, they would just stripped it, taking every part. And I guess the next day, they showed up with some gas and thing revved up and flew away.
Harry, I'm trying to reconcile where you are and what year when you said the neighborhood was 47% Black. Was it your neighborhood? And how come we only had such a few number of Black people at Lusinger?
All the Black people at Lusinger came from where I lived.
Right.
But 97% must have been a small neighborhood. We had a handful of Black people.
Yeah, it was like 3 blocks or so. It was 147th Street,
Right.
bordered on the south by an empty lot, by Bodger Park and Kit Carson High School. And on the west by Yukon, on the north by Rosecrans.
Right.
The streets in between were Chadron, Lamoli, and there was one more street. And I think, in those days they had segregation. So, the blacks couldn't buy into the nice neighborhood, which was right across Yukon, which was where Raleigh lived. I would walk, through Raleigh's neighborhood to get to school.
Mm.
Yeah, that's where Al Patterson lived, if you remember Al. And
El Músico. My
and
dad used to call it.
there was another Albert. There was Al Patterson, and I think it was Albert was the other fellow.
Albert Kelly.
Albert Kelly. And I probably told you this story before because I was in. Did I tell you the story about the Cub Scouts with those two fellas?
Yeah.
Where they would the Cub Scout master wouldn't let them join the Cub Scouts at Kit Carson High School or Kit Carson Elementary School. And my mother, she got very upset about that. And that she said, I'm becoming a den mother and they're going to be in my den. And so my mom became a den mother because she said that they don't need to be making their own Cub Scout troop. So Albert and Al were in my mother's den, if you want to call it that. But yeah, and I'm trying to think, Harry, that mountain you're talking about, was that in a big empty field?
Yeah.
Between Yukon and whatever that other street was a big empty field, was a big mountain there, right? Is that the one you're talking about?
It was at the corner of 147th Street and Lamoli.
Okay.
On one side was a slough, and on the other side was 147th Street that ended and turned into a pedestrian bridge that crossed to Chadron on the other side.
Well, I lived on 145th Street, and if you went towards Yukon on my street, there was a big long line of eucalyptus trees on Yukon, and then there was a big empty field behind it with a big giant mountain of dirt there. It was probably, I don't know, probably 15, 20 foot high.
No, this was way later. This would have been 1962.
Oh, okay, that's
61.
Okay, this was a lot. This was in the 50s.
Yeah,
because we used to have rock fights on who could take the mountain, and we used to have rock fights. That was another one of mine. I got nailed in the back of the head and had stitches because some guy nailed me with this big rock because we were always getting into rock fights. But anyway.
My dad used to call Al Patterson El Músico, the musician, because he walked by with his saxophone every morning.
Oh.
He had a saxophone because he was in the
band.
He was in the band. And another person that crossed a footbridge was the algebra teacher. I forgot his name.
Wolf.
Mr. Wolf would every morning he'd ride his bicycle across a footbridge, dressed in a suit, holding a briefcase, and he would come across.
You guys remember James Valmore?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There was
a wasted talent, right? He should have gone on to great things. I used to play tag football with him in my front yard. Because he had a buddy, and I can't even think of his name right now, but they were both played football because he was quite a bit older. I think he was a freshman or sophomore, and we used to play tag.
He was
football.
A senior when we were freshmen.
Right. But anyway, I remember him playing because all our yards kind of connected with each other, like all the neighbors. So we used to just play football in the front yard, and him and this friend of mine, older one kid that was his age, they used to come and play tag football with us. But
well, as I remember, he made like third team all CIF, which was nobody from Louisiana ever did anything like that.
Well, at one point in time, he had the fastest time in the nation for the 180 yard low hurdles.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I remember about him. I couldn't remember whether it was 220 or the 100, but yeah.
But didn't it all go south for him after that because he knocked some girl up?
I don't know. Last thing I heard about him was not good. Not that I don't think. I think he joined the army and broke a leg. I don't know why that stuck with me, but he you're right, Gary. He was really didn't do much. Maybe he wasn't very couldn't get into college or something, to get.
Yeah, I just know he was like the star athlete whenever we're freshman, second.
Yeah.
But did he graduate in our freshman year, or I can't remember.
No,
Yeah.
he graduated yes, he graduated when we were freshmen.
Yeah.
He was a class of 60.
Yeah.
But I
Well,
don't.
guys, I'm going to have to leave you because I have to go for a hearing test. So
Okay.
got to get the annual hearing test. So
Okay, well, keep rehabbing that hip.
oh, I'm there. I'm just about there because I got to get back to the gym. Move it or lose it.
I get up and
Surprisingly, because I've been sitting around for 5 weeks, I thought, well, I could gain weight for some reason or other. I lost 5 pounds, and I don't understand that at all.
Okay, have a good one, Gary.
All right. So how do I sign out of this thing?
You just say leave or just close,
Okay.
whatever you
Leave. Anyway.
Don't say anything bad until you're sure you're out.
Is there a red button at the upper left of your screen?
Yeah, it says recording.
No, that's okay.
Oh, I see it. So down in the lower right-hand corner, it says.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Here we go. See you guys. See you
Bye.
next time.
Bye-bye. Thanks for the memories.
One thing I forgot to say to Gary when he was talking, he said Ron Wedworth and him did something together. Well, Ron Wedworth's dad was mayor of Hawthorne at one point in time. And the first thing that struck me, he didn't even live in Hawthorne. And I guess they didn't have rules against that.
Well, but his business was in Hawthorne.
Yeah, you're right. Phil's Bike Shop.
Mm-hmm.
Was his dad named Phil, or did he buy it from somebody else?
I don't know.
It was
Gary would have been the person to answer that.
him, as I remember Phil's was there forever. And I never bought a bike there. I couldn't afford Schwinn's. That's what he dealt with. I was a J.C. Higgins guy from Sears.
Yeah, I thought I lived in Hawthorne when I was living on Lamoli because it had a Hawthorne zip code and it had a Hawthorne address, and it was actually that area there was LA County.
Yeah, I didn't live in the city of
I don't
Hawthorne
think
either. I
anybody
had this.
wanted it because of the demographics. And once I crossed Yukon going west, I think that was Hawthorne. I don't know. But then we moved again to 147th Street, still going west, across Prairie, and it was Lawndale.
Yeah.
So,
I was something similar. I had a Hawthorne mailing address, but and I assume probably it was LA County, but it was also called Manita Gardens. And I just remember more than once, I remember Hawthorne trying to annex us, and they always lost the election. Nobody wanted to be in the city of Hawthorne. Not quite sure why, but we didn't. I do remember it's a cop car probably ran the Boulevard stop sign. There was a Boulevard stop sign on Yukon by me, no, Lamoli by me at 134th Street. I lived on 134th Place, and a cop car probably going somewhere without his siren hit another car, and there was a big hullabaloo about that.
Was your place always called Lawndale, or was it unincorporated for a while?
who are you talking to?
Royal.
I was trying to think that clearly. I always knew it as Lawndale. The mailing address never was not Lawndale.
I never heard of Lawndale until I went to Will Rogers, and I didn't know if it was called Lawndale in those days or not.
Yeah, where did you live, Royal? Because I don't think I.
On Kornblum and what would that be? Compton? pretty close.
You were south of Compton.
That's about 5 houses.
Yeah. You were south of Compton, north of
Nice.
Manhattan Beach Boulevard,
If you know
east
where
of
Mark
Prairie.
Twain is, I was down the street from Mark Twain.
Yeah.
Okay, because I used to visit Raleigh a lot and walk by his house and also Joe Compton's house, and they were in that tract that was just west of Yukon, but north of Compton and south of Rosecrans.
Mm.
And I don't know if that was Lawndale or Hawthorne.
I don't think even though I don't, even like we were, I think this Moneta Gardens might even been like a residential kind of thing, like, you live in the gardens or whatever. But I don't think I ever saw anybody who had an address that said LA County. Weren't you all assigned a city in some way, shape, or form? Rather than, even if you lived in the county, you were given a post office box and
Yeah,
all that.
that's correct. 'Cause I lived in a county area, several county areas, and it was always either Los Angeles or Hawthorne.
Yeah, no county after it, Los Angeles City or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, my daughter lived across the I-5 over here in Valencia area, and it's Stevenson Ranch, but it's a county area that's unincorporated. And then she moved across the I-5, and it's Santa Clarita or Valencia, which is incorporated. So, I mean, you could just walk across the street in some areas, and you've changed your city, let's say, on paper.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve,
Yeah.
answer your question. Lawndale incorporated in 1959.
59. Okay. Okay, good. Okay.
Interesting. That's about when their high school opened up. Because a lot of people from your general area, not where you guys live, they went to Lawndale instead of Lusinger. Wasn't that the first year that they opened that school?
Yeah.
And then it's interesting, closed it many years later, several years. Then I think it's back open again. It was an adult school for a while, and now I think it might be a high school again. I don't know.
Do you think Lawndale closed for a while? I know aviation closed for a while.
Is it open now? I know aviation closed as well. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I thought Lawndale kept feeding athletes to SC and a few to UCLA.
Yeah, Samoans.
There's a lot of Samoans in Lawndale?
Yeah.
Oh. It seemed like I didn't know anything about Lawndale, but some people that were like you guys, it seemed like a lot of the rougher kids went to Lawndale rather than Lusinger. I don't know if it was where the particular neighborhood they came from, just a perception or what. But,
You guys know either Ron Bate or Gary Bate? I know Steve might remember those names.
I do. I remember that. I didn't know them well. I kind of knew them through you.
Yes. They told me they were a year apart, but we're in the same high school class, a year ahead of us. And Gary told me that they used to have huge fights in front of the popcorn machine, and people would be bleeding but all those students ended up going to Lawndale.
Ah.
you had a popcorn machine in grade school?
No, at Lusinger.
Well, but you see, all those kids ended up going to, I see, before Lawndale opened up, I guess. Yeah. Okay. I see.
Yeah, because they transplanted kids out of Lusinger.
I didn't know
to go
that.
to Lawndale.
I didn't know that.
That was
Because
one of the
Lusinger
reasons.
used to be well above 2,000, I think. And
That
then
was one of the
really
reasons the
shrunk down
football
after
team was so
Lawndale.
crappy, was because we had lost the people who would have been sophomores and maybe juniors. They did not move the seniors. The seniors said, "Well, we've been at Lusinger, we want to stay at Lusinger."
Makes
But
sense.
I think juniors and down, they split them up
Ah,
when
okay.
they opened Lawndale.
I was not aware of that. Hmm. Of course, my part of town wasn't affected by that. Um, uh, we had people that we would go to grade school with, and based on where they lived, they ended up at Hawthorne instead of they might have gone to my grade school, but ended up at Hawthorne High. And there were a couple people I knew of that. So
I think most of the affected kids would have been those who were west of Prairie,
Sounds right.
because everybody in Royals Tract, which is east of Prairie, but west of the ditch, ended up going to Lusinger. I don't think anybody in there went to Lawndale.
Not that I know of.
yeah,
But
Prairie.
it's funny you were talking about Gary and Ron Bate talking about the fights. I had a couple of cousins who were 3 and 4 years older than I was, so they went to Lusinger, and they would tell stories of Lusinger with people smoking pot on top of the administration building, and gangs everywhere, and knife fights, and I never saw any of that crap when I was there.
You know, I believe my sister graduated in 58. I believe I think there was a period of time there where in the late 50s and mid 50s and before, Lusinger was really tough gang wise. And then when we were there, it was pretty mild compared to that. And then I'm not so sure later after we got out of there, I think like in the 70s, I think they kind of got a little more rougher as the demographics in the area changed.
Hey, Don, you remember when Lusinger turned into sort of an alternative high school for a while?
I remember it kind of as probably 80s. I don't know. I really don't know. I wouldn't
My sister ended up going back as a counselor and worked at Lusinger. And at least once a year, she would have her tires sliced.
Mm.
Yeah, I had a couple of nephews who lived in Hawthorne, who went to Lusinger, and they one of them got knifed at Lusinger,
Ouch.
and there were gangs always trying to recruit both of the kids. It was an awful situation. This would have been in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah. I was gonna say nothing. Yeah, I think we were pretty lucky to go to Lusinger during that time period.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
That's good. Maybe we didn't have good football teams, but we didn't have a lot of gang fights either. There was, I don't know, maybe you remember, I think it was somewhere in the early 90s. It made all the local news, general LA news, maybe further. There was a situation where a bunch of people, students from Lusinger, and a bunch of students from Hawthorne High met together somewhere between those two schools and had a big rumble of some sort. Really was bad. And, I don't know injuries and stuff like that, but it was really newsworthy. But that was well after we were out of there.
Hmm.
Yeah, I recall I lived in LA in the early 60s or late 50s. And when I went to junior high, it was pretty calm there, even though it was, mostly black and a few Hispanics. And then when I went to high school, I went to Fremont High School. And
That's where my mom graduated from.
okay, that was a clown show there. There were kids, while classes were going on, they were going up and down the hallways and they were disrupting and I said to my parents, I don't want to go here. And my mom came and she looked around and she said, yeah, yeah. So we moved from that ghetto to the ghetto in Limoli. And I remember my mom taking me to register a losing her. And she said, it's so quiet. There's nobody in the hallways. The kids are in class. Wow, this is very good. And that would have been, I think, in either 61 or 62, but 61 to 62 year.
Well, does anyone else, I hope I'm just not messing up my memory here. Didn't we used to have kind of a closed campus? Once you were on, you couldn't get off of campus. Because I seem to remember in senior year, it was a big deal when Shigeru and I took off and went and had lunch and left the campus during the day. Does anybody else remember anything like that?
Yeah, I think it was because I recall they opened up some hamburger stand by the Safeway, by Prairie and Rosecrans. There was
Tommy's. Well, there was a burger.
No,
There was a
Biggie's, wasn't it?
There was a Burger King or something like a Burger
Like
King.
a Biggie's. It was like a Skippy's. It was a real 19-cent hamburger place.
Yeah.
Right.
Really good. I liked them better than Skippy's, which was in Hawthorne.
We wanted to go there to eat, and we just, you couldn't do it. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's true. In my freshman year, I believe, right at the main building, which was on Rosecrans, and Jefferson ended at the main building on Rosecrans. If it extended, it would run right into the main building. There was a malt shop there. And then I think it turned into a beauty parlor. But I always thought, wow, we had a malt shop and we never got to go to it. And I think it's because we had a closed campus. It just reminds me of, Chuck Berry's School Day rock and roll song. At the end of the day, I'll go there to dance or whatever his line was. But yeah, I think we did have a closed campus.
Okay.
And then the other thing, did you guys ever go to the Lighthouse restaurant?
Yes.
Or cafe or whatever you want to call it?
Well, I think I did. Is that the one that was on Hawthorne? Just off of Rosecrans?
Corner.
Just off of Rosecrans?
Yeah.
Yeah. I went there.
Yeah.
I went there, I think, when I was a freshman because they had yummy, super greasy tacos.
Tacos.
They had super greasy tacos like the ones we used to get in the snack bar at Lusinger. So I was a real fan of the greasy taco.
I don't, as much as I do like Mexican food and tacos, I don't remember eating tacos at Lusinger. I didn't know they had them. All I remember were the cheeseburgers or hamburgers on the sideline and then meatloaf inside the cafeteria.
Yeah. I almost never ate in the cafeteria. The only time I would eat in the cafeteria was like those days I would go in there and get a tamale and I'd get a dreamsicle. Those are the things I ate in the cafeteria. Most of my eating was outside in the snack lines.
Yeah.
And I'd get hamburgers and tacos.
Unless it
I didn't
rained.
know that. Jesus, why I really missed something. I would have loved those greasy tacos.
Unless it was raining, then you had to go in the cafeteria.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't remember what I did when it rained.
Yeah.
I don't remember a rainy day at Lusinger. How strange is that?
You could write a song.
Yeah.
I recall one day, this was interesting because what had happened was I decided to eat at the cafeteria. And then I got the only reason I was with Al Patterson and the black people from my neighborhood. And I sat there with a group of people next to them that were Michael England, James Ross, and a couple of people that were either drama majors and music majors. So I got to know them pretty well. So I sat there. I sat between the blacks and the drama people, right? Since I'm in between in colors, I guess. And one day, I don't know, 62, everyone's making noise. Everyone's talking. And suddenly, everyone starts saying, shh, shh, shh. be quiet, be quiet, be quiet, everyone. And it got so quiet. And remember, they had the radio on playing music. And then the music had stopped, and it said, "This is Richard Beebe, KFWB News. The Russian ships that are on their way to Cuba are still within 120 miles from Cuba, and U.S. destroyers are on their way to intercept them." I said, "Holy shit, what's going on here?" And that's the only time I saw it was quiet, because that was the Cuban Missile Crisis. And
Remember
everyone,
that dearly, not that incident, but I remember, I really thought,
everyone shut up to hear the news.
yeah, I remember going to, that was our junior year, if I remember right, 62. I was dressing for a football game and remember running through my head. I thought to myself, this was Friday night. I thought, this may be the last football game that I get to play in. I really was scared because, and I believe the what do you call it? The standoff of the ships, that would be like maybe the following Monday or maybe the next day, but Friday was when the first, bad thing was happening. It was bad. Yeah. And I guess
I was so
we even realized back then.
I was so out of it in terms of politics that I don't even remember any of that at Lusinger.
I didn't.
I don't know why I would have missed it, but I don't remember any of it.
But I looked at it from our normal fear of the bomb look at it, knowing nothing about politics, obviously. But at any rate, yep, those were the days.
I had a similar experience, but it was in the Air Force, Harry. I was, after I finished my tech training, I was trained on a computer system, and the only people in the Air Force who used that computer system was the Strategic Air Command.
Mm.
And so the logical place for me to go once I finished my training would have been Offutt Air Force Base, which was SAC headquarters. But instead, they had all the computer weenies that they needed at that time. So they sent me to the SAC backup headquarters, which was in Shreveport, Louisiana, at Barksdale Air Force Base.
Mm.
And one day I was working in Barksdale Air Force Base, and the computer system I worked on was the one that maintained all the displays for what's happening from our early warning system. So, if you remember the displays that would show up in Failsafe or Dr. Strangelove, that's where I was working. Anyway, I was down there, and a similar thing happened. It was during, I guess, the Israeli 6-day war, when everyone thought we were going to the world was going to break up and nuclear war would start. And I was down there, and I remember the computer system died during that. And there was this guy who would reload the computer system from punch cards. And so he was feeding the punch cards in, and he said he was sitting there singing his own little made-up song about how the world was turning to shit.
Well, at least you weren't feeding the computer. They got back up with punch card speed rather than paper tape speed.
Yeah.
That's how I programmed computers to begin with, on paper tape on a teletype.
Yeah, I'll tell you another. Those are Smith Barney moments. What do you call that? Do you remember that commercial?
E.F. Hutton.
E.F. Hutton, that's it.
When E.F. Hutton talks, everyone listens.
And everyone shuts up, right? It's interesting. I lived on Doty Street. I had an apartment there near Rosecrans, and I knew a lot of airline people. And for some reason, I guess we had a party at my place or their apartment, and all these people were airline people, except for me. I think one guy was a pilot, some stewardesses, some maintenance people. Anyway, these people like to party. There were some people in the corner smoking pot. There were some people just talking shit, and talking loud, right? And then somebody said, that's when that Pan Am jet went down off Hong Kong. By the time that person finished that sentence, you could hear a pin drop in that room. Everyone there was paralyzed. Everyone. Nobody was moving. The mood changed from jovial to total seriousness. And then someone started saying, "Oh, did you know that? That was some years back." No, I didn't know that. And pretty soon, the crescendo of noise and party laughter resumed. But it was an interesting moment, and it gave me a glimpse of how people that work for airlines, regardless of their duties, feel connected to each other.
Oh, yeah. I know, well, I've
What
told you guys this.
was the incident? I didn't pick it up. I may have a story. Was this the Lockerbie crash?
I have no idea what crash it was.
About 1988?
No, 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 no. No, this was before I got married, so it would have been
Okay, thank you.
early 70s or late 60s. No.
Pan Am, well, there was, no, I forget that one. What's it to say? I don't know. Before, it's getting close to 11, but not yet. But I want to let you know, I've told you before, that class of 1965's multi-year reunion that you've seen emails from me. I'm really going. I've bought a ticket, and the only people I know that are going from our class are I'll be going with or meeting there. Tom and Judy and Donna McLaughlin, and also Sandy Bowl and Vicky Seacrest will be there from our class. As far as I know, they're the only ones. Mike Peterson isn't going. He had expressed an interest. So I guess where I'm bringing it up to you guys, maybe I will see someone there and might learn some new stories about you guys.
Good.
Or maybe I won't see anybody there. I don't know.
Please say hi to Tom for me.
Right. Okay. Hey, I do want to ask you something, Steve. Susan McCafferty was Pierre Salinger's secretary.
That's what I thought. We've been in touch with Susan. She was like in a secretarial pool. The pool was underneath Pierre Salinger, but she was not his private secretary.
Oh, okay. Was she living in Washington then?
No, because he was working at Continental Airlines.
It wasn't. Wasn't he?
This was after Kennedy was assassinated.
Okay.
Pierre Salinger became the CEO, president, whatever of Continental Airlines.
Because he was Kennedy's
press secretary.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And let's see, Susan won't be going to that reunion. That's not her class, but her sister, as you know, was in that class. Susan said that her sister and her husband have some grandson or granddaughter function that night, and so they won't be going either. So neither of the McCaffertys will be represented.
Yeah, I didn't see Susan's name. I saw Maureen's name and her husband, Bob Fouts, was a year ahead of us.
Yeah, I think at one point they were intending to go. They were on like the list, but in talking to Susan, she said, or in emailing with Susan, she said that Maureen was not going to go.
Too bad. Okay. Well, we got about 5 minutes. Any new stories to tell? Any old stories to tell?
Well, let me do a quick update since Joe didn't check in. He is out of the rehab facility. The last time I talked to him and had any lengthy discussion with him, he's still in pretty bad shape. He has been in and out of the hospital with respiratory issues, and He keeps falling. He can't maintain his balance. They keep trying to get him back to some sort of level of function, defined as he can walk with a walker. So he's not in good shape. But the last I talked to him, his voice was up. He mentally seemed okay. Given it's Joe, so who
Oh, it's
knows?
Claudia.
But he's hanging in there, and he's home now.
Did you mentioned that Claudia was sick for a while too, I thought.
Yeah, Claudia got a bad case of flu and got hospitalized from that. About the same time that Joe was recently in the rehab facility. But she came out, and last I heard, she's okay.
Good. Thank you.
You bet. And if anybody can find out anything about Norman, he's got me worried now. He's missed, I think, the last
when we get off,
sessions.
I'll email Norman and just see if I get a reply and let you know what I find.
Please do. I'm concerned about him.
Yeah,
that's 2 months.
at times, Norman's email has been hacked. It's happened before, so I don't know.
Well, usually I used to get, and I think I still do the way my email works. If I send it to a non-existent email or something like that, I get an undeliverable message. Mine have always gone through to him. So
you're the only one who's close, but the last I heard, he was still practicing dentistry
right
a day or two a week.
Right.
So that might be the best way to get in touch with him if you can't get him via email.
The other thing is I always got a hold of him by text message.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or text. Yeah. Right. True.
Yeah, I think I mentioned Christmas. I got some text photos of his Christmas vacation, but that was it.
Okay.
And I think I got those mid-January.
Okay. Well, like I said, I'm concerned about him.
Yeah. He may be very busy, but who knows?
And of course, I'm reminded of that because of Alan's recent passing. So
yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, I have recorded this, and I'll send out a link once I get it up to YouTube for any of those who didn't come. So maybe Joe can at least listen. Had some good stories today.
Okay.
And certainly get Norman too, and Raleigh for that matter.
Well, Raleigh surprised me a little bit too because we were going to celebrate his birthday this month. So there you are.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, why don't I sign off? Because I got to go to the bathroom.
Okay, Don, real quick, if you can remember, I sent you an email asking for a prior one, not the last one, but the one before, and you didn't have it anymore.
I didn't have it.
If you can archive this,
I would have intended to do that. I think I just screwed up somehow, Harry. I
Okay.
never know for sure if they get recorded. I should have saved it, and I just could not find it. I may have it somewhere. But I keep these permanently. That's why I put them up on YouTube.
Yeah, well, thank you. We appreciate all that you have done.
Okay, no problem. Okay, well, look, we're going to sign off. Last goodbyes.
Okay, go Bruins.
Yep.
Right.
Take care.
Talk to you guys later.
Bye.